Hey there everyone, it's Tim from the Pixel Gaiden podcast, and this time we're going to be talking all about the very cool SAM Coupé from Miles Gordon Technology.
Welcome to Pixel Gaiden!
So here it is then. This is the SAM Coupé. This is my personal one. The SAM Coupé is a wedged shape 8-bit micro that was created by Miles Gordon Technologies in 1989. This was released to market towards the end of 1989 and was in production until 1992. So the specifications of the SAM: it has a custom designed SAM BASIC. It runs a Z80B CPU running at 6 MHz. It has a custom VLSI ASIC chip. It has a standard 256K RAM, which is upgradable to 512K. It has a 128K color palette and has RF modulator and an RGB interface on the back. So, talking about the back of the computer, let's take a quick look. So from the back we can see, going left to right, we've got the brake button, MIDI in and out, which can also double as network ports, an Atari style 9-pin joystick port. We have a mouse connector, a reset button, the edge connector that we'll be using later. We've got a cassette port, we've got a light gun which can also act as audio out, an on-off and a SCART connector, and we've got our power connector at the back. And talking of expansion ports, this is what I choose to plug into mine. This is the Trinity Interface, designed by Colin Piggott, or at QUAZAR on Twitter. The Trinity Interface is an interface that has 3 different functions, hence the Trinity. It has an RJ45 network connector on the back. It has a 128K EEPROM for storing the network configuration, so that's all your TCP/IP information and any network related applications that are going to use the network connection. And the most important thing for me is it has an MMC SD flash card connector, and this can be used for loading programs and files from disk records. We're going to have a look at that shortly and how to use the getting all the information onto the SD card and across onto the SAM. If you're interested about the Trinity and want to learn a little bit more, you can go to Colin's website, and that's www.samcoupé.com. We'll just put that up on the screen. Here's a quick very look at the website. So yeah, let's move on and have a look at what we can actually do with the Trinity interface. Now I've moved over onto my PC. I've got an 8GB memory card, an SD card, and we're going to try and get some of the SAM DSK files, so that's the disk images, onto the SD card, prepared, ready to use with the Trinity. And for this we're going to need a little program called Samdisk by a chap called Simon Owen. Now this is a very, very handy little program. So first of all, what I want to do is list what we've got on the SD card. So at the moment we've got 2 devices. One is my hard drive, one is the generic storage media, and that's the SD card itself. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to prepare that SD card, because the SAM has a specific format. So we're just going to format device 1, which is our generic SD card, as we can see there. So let's enter that command. Once we've entered that command, it's going to start to format the SD card for us. Unfortunately, it does take quite a while. So what we're going to do is we're just going to let it start the format so we can see it going. And then we're just going to pause. I'm going to pause the video and then we'll jump to when it's actually completed. So we'll just let it spin forward a little bit further here. Probably get to around about 4 or 5%, and then I'll pause it and then we'll jump back in. So there we go, our SD card is now ready for us to start using with the SAM. Just roughly that took around about, I think it was about 5 or 6 minutes actually to just get that all formatted. So now we're just going to run some more commands with the Samdisk program. So now we've listed our generic storage again. So again, we're on device 1. So let's have a look and see what's actually on device 1, shall we? So let's do a dir. So we've got 9,840 records, and we've got no records found on there. So that's 9,840 individual DSK files that we can store on here. So there's some of the files that we're actually going to move on to the SD card using the Samdisk program. So we've got a compilation of games there, which is an SAD file, which is another file format that Trinity can handle, and Samdisk. So let's get one of these games on here. So we need to issue Samdisk, the name of the disk, the device, which is device 1, and we want to put it into record 1 because we've got a clean SD card, and that's it. So that's the first one on there. So next we're going to do Prince of Persia. So we'll put that into slot 2 on device 1. Let's do that one, and that's in. And then we're going to put in what are we going to put in next? Oh yes, games 1. So we'll get that one in. That's an SAD file, and we're going to put that on device 1 and into slot 3. So there we go, that's done. Okay then, so that's 3 records filled up. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look and see whether we can actually see those records on the SD card now. So we're going to do a directory of device 1, and look at that, we can actually only see one of the records. Now, although those 3 records are on there, we actually need to now pop across over to the SAM, put the SD card into the SAM, and then we can rename the records on the SAM Coupé itself. So let's get all that switched over. So here we are then, we've powered on the SAM Coupe with the Trinity interface and the SD card inserted. So it's showing we've got an 8 gig SD card. So first of all, we need to check to see what's actually on the records on the SAM. So we just put the record, and there we go. So we've got one file showing, which is what we saw on the PC earlier. But we know that there's more than one on there. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to select that record first, that first one, and then we're going to rename that record. So let's have a look at what we need to do here. So first of all, we need to put in record 1. So that gives us, it targets the first record. So it's like we've just put in disk 1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to rename that record. And we're going to rename that one to Lemmings because it's the lemmings.dsk file that we moved over earlier. So let's do rename to, and then we'll open quotes, and then we'll put Lemmings and close the quotes and press return. And that's going to rename that file. So let's just double check that. So let's now pull up our record again to give us a list of our records we've got on the SD card. And there we go. We can see it's named now to Lemmings. So let's do the next disk or the next record. So this is going to be record 2. So let's select record 2. So again, that's like, so we're now going to rename that one to Prince of Persia because that's the second one. So let's do that. Okay, that's done. And then let's double check that again. So if we bring up our records, and there we go. So we've got Prince of Persia, and now we just need to do the next disk, which was the third disk. So let's select record 3 this time. So there we go. And we're going to rename that one as well. So let's enter the rename to command, and we're going to rename this to, let's games 1, I think. Yes, let's go with games 1. So in there. And OK. So that's all the records named. Let's just check all 3 of those. So let's do the record command again. And yep, there we go. They're all named for us. So coming up next, we're going to load a few nice little games that I've selected. Not ones necessarily that we've put on here, apart from one which is Prince of Persia, but some nice game selections that I've chosen from the SAM library. So first up is the amazing conversion of Prince of Persia. Now this conversion was done by Revelation and programmed by Chris White. It's converted from the original classic by Jordan Mechner and Broderbrand. The game was played in real time, so you played an intrepid adventure and had to save the princess from the evil sultan before she was forced to marry him and die. And in real time you had an hour to complete the game, basically. As you can see on the SAM, this is just an absolutely beautiful conversion. Animation is just so solid. It's just a really, really nice game. It's got beautiful music in the background. I am completely rubbish at this game. I was doing just enough to get a clip for the video. So next up then we have the conversion of Manic Miner. This was done by Revelation in 1992. The original version was done by, programmed by Matthew Smith famously, and published by Bug-Byte on the Spectrum in 1983. This version was converted by Matthew Holt. As you can see, this is a completely redone version of Manic Miner, very faithful to the original version in terms of the look and feel. There are some extra levels that have been created on this, so you can see this is one of the extra levels on there. This is the Hollow Chamber. So you've got 3 different modes of gameplay. So you've got the first one, which is the original. You've got this one, which is some extra caves. And then coming up in a minute, you'll also see that there's some extra new levels on this. It doesn't derive at all from the original version, which is that you've got that annoying, absolutely pixel perfect platforming action that you've got to use to complete the game. This doesn't make it any less frustrating at all. It's still very true to it in that respect. Personally, I absolutely love Manic Miner. It's one of my favourite games. So next up, we've got a lovely little version of Game Boy Tetris on the SAM Coupé. This is a homebrew. This one was converted by a chap called Simon Cook. This is quite a faithful little representation of the Game Boy Tetris. There's not a huge amount known about it. I think it was produced for a demo and never released, but yeah, it's a nice little version. I think you'll probably agree with me. So last up is Escape from the Planet of the Robot Monsters. This is a conversion from the Spectrum version by Domark and Enigma Variations in 1991. This was programmed by Jim Tripp and Glenn Benson. It's a 1 or 2 player game. This has extremely frustrating controls, which is the directional control method. So you use left and right to face in the direction that you want to go, and then you have to press forward to walk. So the story of the game revolves around a Lost in Space plot about 2 soldiers, Jake and Duke, and they are briefed and must go to Planet X, where they must rescue the lovely Professor Sarah, or else the evil reptilians will destroy the Earth. As you can see, it's got lovely graphics, nice sound, this one. I struggled to get into the gameplay a bit because of the control method on this one. So that was nice to see a few of the SAM games loaded through the Trinity Interface by QUAZAR. As you can see, we've got the SAM up on the bench. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fit a 3.5-inch floppy drive and disk interface that I also purchased from QUAZAR, and we're going to put that into the SAM right now. So let's flip it over and take a look inside the SAM first. So we've got the SAM on the bench, and I've put some nice little bubble wrap to protect it. So let's undo some of the screws on the SAM. And I'm just going to do a quick fast forward of this while we're doing it, so it's not too boring. And then we'll take a look inside. So a quick word of warning: when you open your SAM for the first time, don't forget these keyboard connections. These are a bit similar to the Spectrum keyboard connections, and if you forget about these and pull these out accidentally, you could break the membranes on them, and that's going to be a very expensive thing to do. So here I've just carefully removed them, and now we're ready to open up the rest of the SAM and get and see the hardware inside. So let's have a look inside the SAM. Let's take the lid off. Now we've removed the keyboard membrane. And yeah, there's the connections for the keyboard membrane. So remember, please be careful with those. So let's have a look. So here we have the SAM itself. So let's zoom in quickly and have a look at the board. So scrolling across, there's the disk interface, disk 1. That's the Z80B processor there. So you can see we've got the joystick port, the MIDI ports. There's the VLSI custom chip. There's the boot ROM on the right. And there's the 256 extra K of memory that I ordered. So we're going to need to use this disk interface here. And this is the box that I got from QUAZAR with the disk drive in. So let's take that out of the box and have a quick look. So it's all nicely wrapped for us, and there we go, there's the drive itself. So as it shows, that's the disk interface on the back. That's the extra board that we've got on the back here. So this is a Sony floppy drive, so 3.5-inch standard PC compatible floppy drive. It's the controller on the back that does all the magic. So you can purchase that from the samcoupé.com website. So there's the controller interface there. So this is what we're going to need to do to plug it into the SAM. So as you can see now, I've got the SAM open up, the motherboard, and we've got the 3.5-inch disk drive. So we're going to need to use these two slots here. So those are the screw holes. We're going to need to mount that, and then we're going to marry those up with the two screw holes at the bottom there. And then we just need to plug that connector in onto port 1 on there, which is the first disk drive port on the SAM Coupe. So let's have a look at doing that then. So what we're going to do here is we're now going to plug the interface into the port. So it's just nice and easy to do. Don't need to apply too much pressure on there. Just nice and simple to plug in. There's the reverse view, so you can see the disk controller mounted. So now we're just going to screw that in with a couple of screws. And this is nice and simple, just a quick thing to do. This next thing made me quite nervous because this is the front panel of the SAM that we need to take out to get the disk drive in. Here's the panel itself. So luckily it just quite easily just comes off. You don't need to apply too much force. You want to be really gentle with it. Don't break any of the plastic lugs on it, because obviously you may want to get that back on there at some stage. So let's have a so that's the plastic connector there. So now we're just going to show you with the SAM case back on, so the keyboard case back on the top. So that's how it looks. I haven't got a custom bracket to go in there, so we're just going to leave it as it is like that for the moment. So let's we've connected the membrane up, so let's screw it all back together. And now we're ready to load some games from disk. So the game I've chosen to load from disk is Lemmings. Yes, there is a SAM Coupé version of Lemmings, and we are going to load that up right now. So here's a copy I prepared earlier. We'll pop that in the drive. We'll issue the boot command and press return. And this is going to start the loading sequence. So we're just going to let that load through. There's the nice Diagnosis logo. And we're going to load into, so it's originally done by DMA Design. This version was done by, converted by Fred, who did a lot of games for the SAM. So as we can see, this is a lovely Lemmings title screen. So again, by DMA Design, brought onto the SAM by Fred Publishing. And this was obviously licensed from Diagnosis. This one was done, the programming was done by Chris White, who also did one of the games we looked at earlier. So we're loading up Lemmings now. So we're going into the first level. So, you know, most of you watching this, I would imagine, have probably played Lemmings at some stage. If not, where have you been? On the moon. So the first level is pretty simple. All you got to do is select your diggers, get one lemming to dig. He digs down whilst all the other lemmings are starting to come out from the whatever it's called. I don't know even what that's called. So it's the lemming producer, let's call it. So what you can do is you can speed up the flow of the lemmings to come out. So obviously you just want to get this level done quickly. So the digger's done his work, so they're falling down now. So they'll fall down just enough on this one. They won't go splat on this level. If they fall down, it's not too far for them to fall down. So we're just going to finish this level up. So we're just going to wait for this last lemming to make its way across. So we can listen to the lovely music in the background as well. So in comes the last lemming, and that's the end of level 1. So we're just loading up level 2. As you can see, you get a code for each of the levels, so you can progress further and you don't have to keep repeating those levels each time. So level 2, again, is relatively simple, this one. So this is all about the parachutists, I think you might call them. They basically, you've got to give each lemming a umbrella just at the end of the platform here, and then they will there they go, they open up the umbrella and float down safely, because otherwise it will be too far to fall and they'll splat on the ground. So this one is just literally getting you into the mechanic of the game. So your first one you've done is digging. This one is the floating lemmings. So just skip forward onto that one, so it's just completing level 2. So the last lemming's in. So here we are then. This is the last level we're going to look at on Lemmings for the SAM Coupé. This is level 3. This is all about the blockers. So what you need to do on this level is you've got lots of different platforms. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels of platforms. First of all, we need to select one blocker, and he needs to stop the lemmings falling off the far right hand side. So once you've got the blocker there, he deflects one lemming across. So this next lemming that's going to come across here, he's going to fall down. He's going to turn it into our blocker that's going to block to the left, and he's going to stop them going any further left. So next we're going to do another lemming. We're going to get him to block to the right. Let him come down here. So he's now blocking to the right. And there we go. So I've sped it up a bit here. So now we've got all the lemmings coming out in quick succession, so we can get this level completed nice and quick. So here we go, jumped again a little bit further forward, so we can see we've got a great big load of lemmings here waiting to come into to be rescued and get into the exit onto the 4th level. As you can see, there's lots of different lemmings here, and what you've got to do here at the end of the level is, unfortunately, you've got to set the rest of these lemmings to explode. Well, this is all great if you've got the real hardware, but what about emulation? I would recommend the SAM Coupé emulator. This is available for Windows and, as you can see, many other operating systems. Here I'm running it on Windows 10, and I'm just writing the standard basic program. So yeah, if you're looking at thinking about giving the SAM a try after you've seen the games and some of the bits and pieces here on this video, I would thoroughly recommend downloading this. It's free. We'll put the website address up in a moment. Just to let you know, it does emulate both disk drives, so you'll get drive 1 and 2. There's full sound support with it as well, so that's really good. And it will emulate 512K and 256K should you wish to do that. I've just done a very quick run through here. I have used this emulator in the production of this video, so I'd like to give them a big shout out, because it's been handy for me to test some of the stuff without having to go backwards and forwards onto the real hardware at times. So yeah, that's emulation on the SAM Coupé. Give it a try. So that's it. That's the end of our journey with the SAM Coupé for this video. I really hope you've enjoyed it. If this has sparked your interest and you want to get in contact with me, please feel free to tweet me on @Sanxion. That's SANXION. You can also leave a comment on this video. We'd really appreciate that. Also, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And of course, don't forget to listen to the awesome Pixel Gaiden podcast with myself and also my other co-hosts, Eric Nelson and Cody Hoffman. You can find us every 2 weeks on the 15th and the 30th of every month. And you can find our podcast at www.pixelgaiden.com. Until the next time, take care. Bye.